Good evening, everyone. It's so good to be here with you today as we stand at the threshold of a new year, a new chapter. And I want to talk to you about something that I believe will make a profound difference in how we show up in our own lives and in the lives of those around us. Niceness is often mistaken for kindness, but they are not the same thing. Niceness is a strategy, a coping mechanism that we use to navigate life's complexities. It is about maintaining a certain image, avoiding conflict, and keeping things smooth on the surface. When we are nice, we often prioritize other people's comfort over our own, choosing to say what we think others want to hear rather than what we truly feel. We might do this to avoid tension, to keep relationships from becoming strained, or because we fear rejection. But in doing so, we sacrifice our authenticity and we create a version of ourselves that is more about fitting in than truly belonging. Niceness is an attempt to remain safe and liked by others, but in the process, we can lose touch with who we are and what truly matters to us. At its core, niceness is rooted in fear. Fear of disapproval, fear of conflict, fear of being judged or rejected. It is driven by the desire to be accepted, to be part of the group, and to avoid the discomfort of standing out or speaking up. This fear-based response comes from a deep-seated belief that we are not enough unless others approve of us. We may think that if we keep things pleasant, if we stay agreeable and avoid confrontation, we will be liked and our relationships will be safe. But this way of living keeps us in a constant state of self-monitoring, performing and suppressing our true thoughts and feelings. Niceness also often prevents us from being honest about what we need or want. When we are too focused on pleasing others, we push our own desires and boundaries aside. We find ourselves agreeing to things we don't want to do, saying yes when we should be saying no, and offering our time and energy to others at the expense of our own well-being. Niceness can make us feel like we are doing the right thing, but in truth, it can be a form of self-betrayal. We're not showing up as our full, authentic selves. Instead, we're playing a role, trying to maintain an image that is palatable to others. This pattern of behavior can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and even burnout because we are constantly putting ourselves last. It's important to recognize that niceness often comes with a hidden cost. While it may seem like the right thing to do, it can create distance between us and the people we care about. Why? Because when we're only nice, we're not being real. People can sense when something is off, even if they can't put it into words. When we aren't fully transparent and authentic in our interactions, we unintentionally set up walls. We may avoid difficult conversations, avoid expressing our true opinions, and shy away from confronting issues that need to be addressed. As a result, we prevent true connection from happening. Furthermore, niceness often encourages a transactional way of interacting. It's not about being kind or caring, it's about trying to maintain a certain image or to win approval. We may feel like we need to be nice in order to get something in return, whether it's favor, affection, or acceptance. This subtle form of manipulation can eat away at the trust in our relationships because people start to feel that they are not interacting with the real us, but with a version that is designed to please. Niceness also perpetuates a cycle where discomfort is avoided at all costs. When we live in the realm of niceness, we sidestep the hard conversations, the confrontations, and the uncomfortable moments that are necessary for growth and understanding. We keep things surface level, thinking we are protecting ourselves and others from harm. But in reality, we are avoiding the opportunities that allow us to learn, evolve, and strengthen our relationships. By pretending that everything is fine and that we are always okay, we fail to address issues that could ultimately lead to greater intimacy and trust. The truth is, niceness keeps us small. It keeps us stuck in patterns that limit our potential for deep connection, for real growth, and for living with purpose and integrity. When we are too focused on being nice, we prevent ourselves from experiencing the fullness of life. Authenticity is often misunderstood. It's not simply about being yourself, it's about having the courage to show up in the world exactly as you are without pretense or compromise. When we are authentic, we align our actions with our values and our true feelings. We stop hiding behind the mask we've created to please others, and we stop filtering ourselves to fit into the expectations of the world around us. Authenticity requires vulnerability, the willingness to be seen as we are, without the fear of judgment or rejection. It is the ability to say, this is who I am, and I'm enough, even when it feels risky or uncomfortable. One of the most profound things about authenticity is that it fosters connection. When we show up as our true selves, we invite others to do the same. Authenticity is a bridge between people. It creates the space for real relationships to form. When we stop pretending and allow ourselves to be fully present, we give others permission to do the same. True connection happens when we stop performing and start being real. It's the moments when we let down our guard, share our struggles, and express our true thoughts and feelings that we experience the depth of human connection. Without authenticity, we are simply engaging in surface-level interactions, and those can never compare to the richness of genuine, wholehearted relationships. However, the path to authenticity is not always easy. It requires a level of self-awareness and self-acceptance that many of us are not taught to embrace. From an early age, many of us are conditioned to seek approval, to conform, and to hide parts of ourselves that might be considered too much or too different. We are taught to be polite, to follow the rules, and to fit in, often at the expense of our own true selves. Over time, this conditioning leads us to believe that our worth is tied to how others perceive us rather than how we see ourselves. The idea of being authentic then can feel frightening because it means rejecting the need for external validation and trusting in our inherent value regardless of how others respond. Being authentic doesn't mean being reckless or inconsiderate. It doesn't mean saying whatever comes to mind without thought or empathy. It's about knowing who you are, standing in that truth, and expressing it with integrity. Authenticity allows us to set boundaries that protect our energy, to speak up when something doesn't sit right with us, and to make choices that reflect our values and priorities. It is a commitment to live in alignment with what matters most to us, not to what others expect or demand. Living authentically also means accepting that we won't always be liked, and that's okay. One of the biggest challenges in embracing authenticity is the fear of rejection. When we show up as we are, there will inevitably be people who don't understand us, who don't approve us, or who prefer the version of ourselves that we used to present. The fear of not being accepted can be paralyzing, but it's important to remember that authenticity is not about pleasing everyone. It's about staying true to yourself. The more we lean into our authentic selves, the more we attract people who resonate with us, people who appreciate us for who we truly are. These are the relationships that are worth nurturing because they are grounded in real connection, not in superficial performance. Moreover, authenticity creates freedom. When we stop pretending and start being real, we free ourselves from the exhausting cycle of self-doubt and approval seeking. We no longer have to worry about whether we are saying or doing the right thing to fit in. We can simply be. And that is incredibly liberating. Authenticity allows us to step into our full potential, to be bold in our decisions, and to embrace opportunities that align with our deepest desires and passions. Being authentic also means embracing all aspects of ourselves, the light and the dark, the strengths and the flaws. It means accepting our imperfections, learning from our mistakes, and growing through our challenges. Authenticity is not about perfection. It's about being honest with ourselves about who we are, without judgment. When we embrace our true selves, we can create a life that is meaningful and fulfilling, one that is driven by our own vision, not the expectations of others. Vulnerability is often seen as a weakness, but in reality, it is the ultimate form of strength. It takes immense courage to show up in the world and reveal the parts of ourselves that we might prefer to hide. Vulnerability is about embracing uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. It's about being open, even when we don't know how things will turn out. In a world that often rewards perfection and shields us from discomfort, choosing vulnerability requires us to step into the unknown and trust that we will be okay, even if things don't go as planned. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we give others the opportunity to truly see us. Vulnerability invites connection. It creates a space for authenticity to emerge because when we allow ourselves to be seen, we show others that it's okay for them to do the same. This kind of connection is deeper and more meaningful than surface-level interactions. Vulnerability is the foundation of trust. When we open ourselves up, we show that we are willing to be real, even when it's difficult or uncomfortable. And in turn, this encourages others to meet us in the same place of honesty and openness. However, embracing vulnerability isn't always easy. We live in a world where emotional exposure is often met with judgment, criticism, or rejection. Vulnerability feels risky because we are laying ourselves bare, putting our true feelings, desires, and fears on display. And when we do this, there's a chance that others might not respond in the way we hope or expect. They might misunderstand us, criticize us, or worse, dismiss us. This fear of vulnerability is natural because at its core, vulnerability involves the possibility of being hurt. But while it's true that vulnerability opens us up to the potential for pain, it also opens us up to the possibility of deep, meaningful connection, growth, and resilience. Being vulnerable doesn't mean sharing every intimate detail of our lives with everyone we meet. Vulnerability is not about oversharing or seeking sympathy. It's about being honest about our experiences and emotions, allowing others to witness us in our raw, unguarded state. Vulnerability means letting go of the need for control and perfection and allowing ourselves to be imperfect. It's about letting go of the fear of judgment and accepting that we don't have to have all the answers or present ourselves as flawless in order to be worthy of love, respect, and belonging. One of the most profound aspects of vulnerability is its ability to foster personal growth. When we step into vulnerability, we are often faced with discomfort and uncertainty. This is where growth happens. By embracing vulnerability, we challenge ourselves to confront our fears, to sit with our discomfort, and to learn to trust in ourselves and others. Vulnerability pushes us beyond our comfort zones and invites us to take risks that we might have otherwise avoided. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we open ourselves up to new opportunities, new perspectives, and new ways of being in the world. In relationships, vulnerability is the key to intimacy. True intimacy is built on the willingness to share our innermost thoughts, feelings, and fears with someone else. It's about showing up with all of who we are without pretending to be someone we're not. Vulnerability allows us to connect on a deeper level with others, whether in friendships, romantic relationships, or even professional connections. When we choose vulnerability, we choose to trust others with our authentic selves. And in doing so, we create the space for real, meaningful relationships to flourish. Vulnerability doesn't just allow us to receive support and empathy from others, it also allows us to offer that same compassion in return. While vulnerability can sometimes feel daunting, it's important to remember that it is a powerful tool for change. It allows us to break free from the shackles of perfectionism, to embrace our humanity, and to let go of the fear that holds us back from fully living. Vulnerability is not about weakness. It's about embracing the uncertainty of life and trusting that we are strong enough to handle whatever comes our way. It is the courage to be imperfect, to be human, and to show up in the world with our whole hearts, no matter the outcome. Setting boundaries is one of the most important, yet often overlooked acts of self-care. It's the practice of defining and protecting our physical, emotional, and mental space, ensuring that we are not overextended or overwhelmed by the demands and expectations of others. Boundaries are not walls that separate us from others. Rather, they are the guidelines we set for ourselves to ensure that our needs, values, and well-being are respected. Without boundaries, we can easily find ourselves drained, resentful, and disconnected from our true selves. Boundaries are not just about saying no, they are about honoring ourselves and recognizing that our time, energy, and emotions are valuable. The act of setting boundaries often requires us to confront our discomfort with conflict or confrontation. Many of us were taught to be accommodating, to put others first, and to avoid causing tension. We have been conditioned to believe that saying no is rude or unkind, and as a result, we often end up sacrificing our own well-being to make others happy. But what we fail to realize is that by not setting boundaries, we are doing a disservice to both ourselves and the people around us. When we fail to assert our needs, we create a situation where resentment builds, where we begin to feel overwhelmed, and where our relationships are based on a false sense of selflessness rather than mutual respect and understanding. One of the most important aspects of setting boundaries is recognizing that it's not selfish to take care of ourselves. In fact, it's necessary. Without boundaries, we lose the ability to be present in our relationships, both with others and with ourselves. We cannot show up as our best selves when we are constantly giving, without taking the time to recharge and replenish our own energy. Setting boundaries allows us to create the space we need to rest, reflect, and nurture our own growth. It's about saying, I am worthy of this time, this energy, and this care, and then acting on that belief. Setting boundaries also requires us to be clear about our values and priorities. It's about understanding what truly matters to us and ensuring that we protect those things. For example, if we value our mental health, setting boundaries might involve taking time for ourselves to rest and unwind, even if others are demanding our time or attention. If we value our relationships, setting boundaries might mean communicating openly about our needs and ensuring that we are not overcommitting ourselves to things that don't align with our goals. Boundaries help us stay aligned with what we truly want in life, rather than getting caught up in the noise of other people's expectations or demands. Boundaries are not just about protecting ourselves from others, they are also about respecting others. When we set clear boundaries, we teach others how to treat us. We show them that we value ourselves enough to stand up for our own needs, and we create an environment of mutual respect. This is especially important in relationships where we might be tempted to people please or overextend ourselves. Setting boundaries helps to eliminate the cycle of burnout, resentment, and frustration that can come from giving too much without receiving in return. When both parties understand and respect each other's boundaries, relationships thrive on a foundation of trust and understanding. Another important aspect of setting boundaries is recognizing that they are fluid and adaptable. Boundaries are not one size fits all, and they can change depending on the context and the people involved. It's okay to adjust your boundaries as needed to suit the circumstances. For example, in a work environment, you may set boundaries around your availability after hours to protect your personal time. In a close friendship, you may adjust your boundaries to allow for deeper emotional sharing, but still maintain a sense of space for yourself. Flexibility is key in setting healthy boundaries, as it allows you to navigate different situations while still maintaining your sense of self. One of the biggest obstacles to setting boundaries is the fear of rejection or conflict. We often worry that if we set boundaries, we will disappoint others or jeopardize relationships. This fear can make it incredibly difficult to assert ourselves and protect our needs. However, it's important to remember that setting boundaries is not about pushing people away. It's about creating a space where everyone's needs are honored. It's about finding balance and ensuring that we don't lose ourselves in the process of caring for others. While it might be uncomfortable at first, setting boundaries is a skill that strengthens over time. And the more we practice it, the easier it becomes. Ultimately, setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It's a way of saying, I matter. My needs matter. My time matters. It's about creating the conditions in which we can thrive, both as individuals and within our relationships. Without boundaries, we risk becoming disconnected from ourselves, overwhelmed by others' needs, and ultimately burned out. But when we set and maintain boundaries, we reclaim our power, we protect our energy, and we cultivate a life that is true to our values and desires. Choosing courage over comfort is one of the most transformative decisions we can make in our lives. It requires us to step outside the familiar, to move beyond what feels safe and easy, and to embrace the uncertainty and vulnerability that come with growth. Courage is not the absence of fear, it is the willingness to take action despite fear. Comfort, on the other hand, is often rooted in the desire to stay where we feel secure, even if it means avoiding challenges or staying stuck in unfulfilling situations. The choice between courage and comfort is one that we face daily, whether we realize it or not, and how we navigate this choice has a profound impact on the lives we create for ourselves. Comfort can be incredibly seductive. It's the space where everything feels predictable, controlled, and familiar. It's where we know what to expect, and it often feels like the safest place to be. In many ways, comfort is a form of self-protection. We stay within our comfort zones because we believe it will protect us from failure, rejection, or discomfort. The problem is that when we choose comfort over courage, we limit our potential for growth and transformation. We may avoid difficult conversations, shy away from taking risks, or remain in situations that no longer serve us simply because we fear the unknown. In doing so, we miss out on the opportunities that could lead to the life we truly desire. Courage, in contrast, requires us to face our fears head-on. It's about stepping into the unknown, taking risks, and embracing the discomfort that comes with change. Courage isn't always about grand, dramatic acts. It's often found in the small, everyday choices we make. It's the courage to speak up when we need to set a boundary, to pursue a passion that scares us, or to stand up for what we believe in, even when it feels daunting. Courage is about trusting ourselves enough to take action, even when the outcome is uncertain. It's about having the faith to know that no matter what happens, we can handle it and learn from it. Choosing courage over comfort also means choosing authenticity. When we stay in our comfort zones, we often suppress parts of ourselves that are too different or too much for the world we think we should fit into. We hide our true feelings, opinions, and desires because we fear judgment or rejection. But when we choose courage, we give ourselves permission to be real. We allow ourselves to speak our truth, to show up fully, and to embrace who we are without the fear of how others will perceive us. This level of authenticity is incredibly freeing because it means we are no longer living for the approval of others, we are living for ourselves. Choosing courage over comfort is about stepping into our fullest potential and expressing ourselves honestly, even when it feels uncomfortable. The act of choosing courage also allows us to create deeper, more meaningful relationships. When we choose comfort, we may avoid difficult conversations or keep things on the surface in our interactions with others. But when we choose courage, we create the space for vulnerability and connection. Courage is what enables us to have the tough, necessary conversations that can lead to greater understanding and intimacy. It's the courage to be seen, to be known, and to allow ourselves to connect with others in an authentic way. Without courage, our relationships can remain shallow based on masks and pretenses. With courage, our connections can be rich, grounded in trust, and rooted in mutual respect. It's important to recognize that choosing courage doesn't mean abandoning our sense of safety or self-care. Courage isn't reckless. It's about making thoughtful, intentional choices that align with our values, even when they require us to step out of our comfort zones. It's about recognizing that growth often comes with discomfort, but that discomfort is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of progress. Courage isn't always about taking huge leaps. Sometimes it's about making small, incremental changes that push us a little beyond what feels comfortable. Each small act of courage builds upon the next, and over time, these small choices lead to profound transformation. Choosing courage also means being willing to fail. Failure is often seen as something to be avoided at all costs. But in reality, failure is a necessary part of growth. When we choose courage, we open ourselves up to the possibility of failure, but we also open ourselves up to the possibility of success. Failure doesn't define us, it teaches us. It shows us what doesn't work, what we need to improve, and where we need to focus our efforts. The more we embrace failure as part of the process, the more courageous we become. We start to see failure not as something to fear, but as an opportunity to learn, grow, and improve. Ultimately, choosing courage over comfort is a choice that shapes the direction of our lives. It is a decision to live fully, to embrace the discomfort of growth, and to trust ourselves enough to take the necessary risks to achieve our dreams. Courage is what propels us forward, what pushes us past our fears, and what allows us to live with integrity and authenticity. Choosing courage doesn't mean that the fear disappears. It means that we choose to move forward anyway, with the belief that we are capable of handling whatever comes our way. The more we choose courage, the more we expand our potential and open ourselves to a life of fulfillment, meaning, and growth. The power of self-compassion is something that we often overlook in our quest for success, validation, or perfection. Too many times we push ourselves beyond our limits, expecting more from ourselves than we would ever expect from others. We criticize ourselves for our mistakes, our shortcomings, and our perceived failures without giving ourselves the kindness and grace we so readily offer to others. Self-compassion is the practice of treating ourselves with the same warmth, understanding, and care that we would show to a close friend or loved one, especially during times of struggle or difficulty. It is about recognizing that we are human, that we will make mistakes, and that we deserve to be treated with love and empathy, even when we fall short of our own expectations. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that self-compassion is a form of weakness or indulgence. We have been taught that we should always strive for more, that we should constantly be pushing ourselves to be better, to do better, to achieve more. We are conditioned to believe that if we are too kind or forgiving to ourselves, we might become complacent or lazy. But the truth is, self-compassion is not about letting ourselves off the hook or avoiding responsibility. It is not about excusing bad behavior or making excuses for our mistakes. Self-compassion is about acknowledging our humanity, accepting that we are imperfect, and giving ourselves permission to be flawed while still striving for growth and improvement. It's about treating ourselves with the same level of care and understanding that we would offer to a friend who is struggling. When we practice self-compassion, we give ourselves the space to be vulnerable, to acknowledge our pain, and to heal from our challenges. It allows us to release the self-criticism that often holds us back from moving forward. When we are kind to ourselves in moments of failure or disappointment, we can learn from those experiences without getting trapped in shame or self-doubt. Self-compassion allows us to embrace our mistakes as opportunities for growth, rather than as proof of our inadequacy. It helps us to recognize that we are not defined by our failures, but by how we respond to them. Rather than berating ourselves for not being perfect, we can approach ourselves with the same empathy and understanding that we would extend to someone else who is going through a difficult time. One of the key elements of self-compassion is the ability to recognize that we are not alone in our struggles. We often feel isolated when we face challenges, convinced that we are the only ones who are experiencing difficulty or pain. But the truth is, everyone faces struggles at some point in their lives. We are all imperfect, and we all have moments of vulnerability. When we practice self-compassion, we recognize that our struggles are a part of the shared human experience. We are not separate or different from others because of our pain or imperfections. Instead, we are connected by our shared humanity. This recognition allows us to feel less isolated in our struggles and to embrace our experiences with greater acceptance. Self-compassion also plays a crucial role in fostering resilience. Life is full of challenges, setbacks, and disappointments, and it can be easy to become discouraged when things don't go as planned. But when we practice self-compassion, we are better able to navigate those challenges with grace and perseverance. Instead of giving in to self-criticism or defeat, we are able to show ourselves the same kindness that we would show to a friend who is struggling. This allows us to bounce back from adversity more quickly and with greater confidence. Self-compassion is not about avoiding pain or hardship. It's about acknowledging those difficult moments and offering ourselves the support and care that we need to heal and move forward. Another important aspect of self-compassion is the ability to set boundaries. When we are overly critical of ourselves, we often overextend ourselves in an attempt to prove our worth or to meet the expectations of others. We take on too much, sacrifice our own needs, and neglect our well-being in the process. Self-compassion encourages us to recognize our limits and to honor them. It teaches us that it's okay to say no, to prioritize our own needs, and to take time for self-care. By practicing self-compassion, we learn to recognize when we are giving too much of ourselves and to take a step back when we need to recharge and replenish our energy. Ultimately, self-compassion is about creating a loving and supportive relationship with ourselves. It's about accepting who we are, flaws and all, and treating ourselves with the same kindness and understanding that we would offer to a dear friend. When we cultivate self-compassion, we build a foundation of emotional resilience, self-acceptance, and inner peace. It is the key to living a balanced, fulfilled life where we can embrace both our strengths and weaknesses with equal grace. By practicing self-compassion, we allow ourselves to be more present, more authentic, and more connected to the world around us. And in doing so, we create the conditions for a life that is grounded in love, empathy, and acceptance. In 2025, it's time to stop being too nice and start embracing the power of authenticity, vulnerability, courage, and self-compassion. By setting boundaries, choosing courage over comfort, and practicing self-compassion, we can create lives that are true to who we are, grounded in our values, and full of meaningful connections. Being kind to others is essential, but it's equally important to extend that same kindness to ourselves. As we step into this new year, let's prioritize our well-being, embrace our imperfections, and trust that by being authentic and courageous, we can create a life that is both fulfilling and true to who we really are.